Let's move on to our fourth main topic today. Chris, what is main topic number 4?
Rokaan Al-Zeer writes, in the words of the Smiths, Big Mouth strikes again. Francis Ford Coppola has come out and defended Scorsese's comments about comic book movies and even said they're not inspirational and called them despicable. What do you think? What you think?
Listen, let me be very clear about something. I put this on my social media as well. I don't begrudge anybody, including big filmmakers, to like or not like whatever movies they like or don't like, right? That's the subjectivity of film. That's what it means to be a film fan. Yeah. We like what we like and we don't like what we don't like. And that's why, just giving a little bit of groundwork here, when Marty Scorsese came out and made his first comment about it, calling that, I don't really consider the comic book movies cinema as well as they're made, blah, 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 I defended him. I'm like, you know what? I see where he's coming from. People like me have called the comic book genre just mostly it's spectacle, some great spectacle, but it's an evolving genre and it's getting better. And we're seeing some real breakthroughs. Films like Joker, films like Logan, films, on and on. But I defended him basically, saying I don't necessarily agree with him, but hey, is he really all that off from what he's saying when you really think about the context? But you see, I believe there is a difference between having your own personal opinions about a movie, particularly when you're a filmmaker, and mounting a campaign actively against a genre of film. When Marty Scorsese made his first comment, he was just expressing a thought. But then he takes to the stage and doubled down, started calling comic book movies invaders, that they're invading our cinemas, that movie theater chains need to step up and keeps them out a little bit to make more room for other films, even though 97% of all movies that are come out in 2020 are those other films. So I don't know what Marty is smoking. Well, then Francis Ford Coppola, one of the all-time greats, the maker of arguably not one, but maybe the 2 greatest films of all time in Godfather 1 and Godfather 2, another one of the most iconic films of all time in Apocalypse Now. He was at a film festival, got on stage, and he doubled down on what Marty was saying, ratcheting up the semantic battle and ramping up the toxicity in his language, and this is what he said. When Martin Scorsese says that the Marvel pictures are not cinema, he's right. Because we expect to learn something from cinema. We expect to gain some enlightenment, some knowledge, some inspiration. I don't know what anyone gets out of seeing the same movie over and over again. Martin was kind when he said it's not cinema. He didn't say it's despicable, which I just say it is. And that is, of course, coming from Francis Ford Coppola. There's a couple things I want to say about this. Number one, none of what Francis Ford Coppola has just said, or Martin Scorsese has said, at all shakes the foundations that they are 2 of the greatest titans ever in the business of filmmaking. They are 2 of the best that have ever done it, and nothing that they say about Marvel movies or comic book movies change any of that. And again, to repeat, because it's important, they are completely entitled to their opinion. Again, though, there is a difference between having an opinion and then openly, viciously trying to attack the only fucking game in town that's keeping the movie theaters alive today, you jackasses. There's a difference between saying, that's not for me. Like, quite often, guys, anime will come up, right?
Yeah.
And I'll say, you know what? It's not, anime is just not really for me.
Yeah. And that does not make me hate you.
And oddly enough, that doesn't make you hate me. It's just, hey, you know what? It's just not for me. A lot of people love it. Not for me. You want to talk about the Star Wars prequels? Okay, I hate those things, but I celebrate if other people like them. That's great if other people like them. They're not for me. They don't work. If you ask me, I'll say, I think they're terrible, but a lot of people love them, and that's great. What has saddened me a lot when looking at this situation of Scorsese and then the escalation of Scorsese and now even the escalation more by Ford Coppola, what saddens me a lot is the complete lack of class. The complete lack of class these infinitely classy men are exhibiting. Rob, I've said for a long time, I have a fundamental problem, particularly when it comes to movies. When filmmakers, I just don't believe this should happen. Filmmakers, which is a astronomically difficult thing to do and to be. When filmmakers, unprovoked, start attacking and shit-talking the work of other creators. I just think that is absolutely classless. Let the fans talk about what they like and don't like. Let the film critics talk about what they like and don't like. As a filmmaker yourself, it's not your place, and you're allowed to say, that movie's not for me, but have some class. Say, hey, look, Marty had some statements. This is what I wish Coppola would have said. Look, Marty had his statements. I support him. And, it's just, I know these films are very popular, and I know there are a lot of people who really love them, but they're not for me. Have some class. I've never appreciated filmmaking. Now, some people will say, I just like hearing some honesty. No. There's a place to have class. If you are a filmmaker to just come out without any provocation and attack the work of other filmmakers, and James Gunn has been very active on social media about this. He feels, because these two guys are gods to him.
Yeah.
Scorsese and Coppola are gods to James Gunn. And he's had to sit there, a guy who has never done anything but revere these guys, praise these guys, idolize these guys, and have these guys, for no reason, it's fine if they don't like his film, that's one thing, for no reason to vilify and demonize, to the point calling them despicable, attacking, undermining, berating, and delegitimize his work has been very hurtful. And I get that. Now, again, there are going to be some misguided people that try to fly to Scorsese's and Coppola, Forever Greatness is their names, but who will try to fly to their defense saying they're just expressing their opinion. No, if you're not an idiot, you know there's a difference between just expressing an opinion and going on a warpath attack stance. This has become a campaign, and this has become classless in my point of view. And again, I'm not saying a Scorsese or DiCaprio needs to like these movies. Not at all. There are a lot of people who don't like comic book movies. There are people who don't like the Godfather movies. There are people who don't like Star Wars movies. That's fine. But this thing of a revered filmmaker, unprovoked, to come out and delegitimize and undermine the work of other creators who have never done anything to him so viciously, and by the way, very tone deafly, because I want to bring up something that Coppola said here. He said, because we learned something from cinema, we expect to gain something, some enlightenment. Tell me what enlightenment I got from Captain EO. Anyway, some enlightenment, some knowledge, some inspiration. I don't know when anybody gets out of these. I'll tell you what people get out of them, Francis. There are a lot of people who get a lot of inspiration out of these movies. There are a lot of people who have their imagination sparked and brought to life by these movies. There are a lot of people who gain different points of view on the world they live in because of these movies, and that's totally fine if you don't, but fuck you if you think nobody else does and nobody else should. With all due respect. Again, there are going to be people who misguidedly try to say, hey, relax, they're just expressing their opinions. No. This is a different thing. This is a different level. This is a mounted, coordinated attack on something that is keeping the industry alive just because it's not their kind of movies. And there is nothing wrong with them just saying, hey, these movies ain't for us. I don't personally enjoy them. Nothing wrong with that. And that's why I defended Scorsese when he made his first comment. But it's just, again, Rob, to me, sad, because these are guys we revere, and I always will, and none of that changes. These are the guys we all respect. We got The Irishman coming out, which we're all excited to see. Everybody's excited to see. But to act with such lack of class is disheartening. And it reeks of old man yelling at cloud. If you guys have seen that Simpsons meme, it reeks of, even though it hasn't, this business has not left Martin Scorsese behind. but it reeks of a couple of guys who feel like the business has left them behind. It's just sad. And if this was two nobodies saying this crap, who cares? But they're titans, Rob. Anyway, I've gone on enough about that. Your thoughts on the escalation that just brought to the table here by Francis Ford Coppola?
Well, I did my whole show observations on this yesterday, and one of the things that I find strange about this is both Coppola and Scorsese began in genre cinema. They began doing grindhouse. In Coppola's case, he did literally sex films, and I don't understand. Take the first Iron Man. Just look at the first Iron Man. The first Iron Man is a fairly intimate story about a man coming to grips with what he's been doing in the world and realizing he's been doing something wrong. And he undergoes a transformation, a change of heart, which is a classical story. I mean, whether you want to say it's part of the MCU or not, it's about a man who was dealing arms, living high on the hog. He didn't really think about what he was doing and the ramifications of what was happening in the world because of what he was doing. And he himself, through being touched by his own weapons and winding up in his own situation, has a change of heart and ends up in a battle, not with the forces of the universe, but with somebody in his own company who wants to oust it away from him and his own family. And it's a very intimate story. Yes, he makes himself the Iron Man suit, and yes, he fights Jeff Bridges as Ironmonger. But really, it's really about the battle of a man in his own soul against a family member. And that's a pretty intimate story. And regardless of how you look at things, that's a legit story to tell. You could have told that story in many other different venues as well, but they chose to make it the cornerstone, literally the foundational block of the MCU. That's a legit movie, no matter how you're looking at it, no matter where you're coming from, whether you like genre films, whether you like superhero movies at all. And these are guys that haven't even watched these movies. We know from Ryan Coogler that he talks about when Coppola did see Black Panther. So he did see Black Panther. But for them to attack these films, it seems like, I feel like I'm watching like the PMRC, like Tipper Gore back in the 80s, complaining about what heavy metal music was doing to the minds of America. And I'm like, babe, you have never sat down. You've never listened to like Ronnie James Dio. You never played a Quiet Riot record. You did not listen to Poison's Look What the Cat Dragged In. You don't know what you're talking about. And unless you're a headbanger yourself, you are not qualified to discuss what's going on. And I feel that Coppola and Scorsese are not. I'm like, why would you bother? You guys know genre cinema. It just drives me crazy. I'm like, Marty, the studios would not make The Irishman. You got $165 million from Netflix. You're in the middle of the evolutionary sea change the industry is going through, and you are leading the charge. You have nothing to bitch about. Coppola is talking about at 80 making Megalopolis, which he shot footage from. He's going to get to make it. I mean, what is the problem? Movies are healthier now than perhaps they've ever been. People are more excited. They're coming back to the cinema. You've got new generations of kids that are watching these Marvel movies that are going to go off and finally find their way back to your movies. Joker is going to bring them back to Taxi Driver and King of Comedy. Why are you bitching? Why?
Chris, you've heard the escalation of the comments.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
I mean, it's kind of like being like Degas, Liechtenstein. They're not artists. One does art, one does crap. It's all art. It's all subjective. And one of the things I really like on this show is you guys do a really good job of pointing out how geek culture can have its gatekeepers, right? We as comic book fans sometimes can go, no, this is mine, this is my precious, and you all are ruining it this, or you don't get to know about this. This is my knowledge. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening here with film, is that there's a gatekeeping happening. It feels very elitist to say that these aren't films. Film is one of the most accessible art forms there is. So it's very important that it is reflective of the human condition. And boy, howdy are these comic book movies reflective of the human condition. People with all kinds of different mental disorders have talked about how they really connected to the Hulk character, how they really, really felt for Thor and his whole journey through Endgame, and how he still felt worthy at the end, and how that really connected with them. You know, these were stories that helped us build our own morality, our own sense of right and wrong. So if you're not inspired or don't get anything out of them, that's a you problem, not a movie problem. And again, I'm not going to yuck anybody's yum. If you like this stuff, great. If you don't like it, That's great. You can have an opinion and you can also not be an asshole.
Plus, I mean, these are the culmination. You couldn't have made Thanos 20 years ago.
Yeah.
He might have been a practical character, and you would have seen a latex ball sack on his chin instead of the amazing what Thanos has been turned into using state of the art CG. Scorsese's own de-aging technology was sort of pioneered through the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's amazing that what James Cameron was doing in the 80s in The Abyss with the pseudopod that led to the T-1000 and T2, which led to Jurassic Park being able to make photorealistic dinosaurs. The MCU is a culmination of all of modern cinema technology coming together, making something possible that wasn't even possible 25 years ago. And it's really interesting. I consider myself a very astute film fan. I love Coppola's work. He's a god to me. But these movies, which I would have loved to have seen as a kid in the 70s, could not have existed until now. And as a middle-aged man with one foot in the grave, I am much richer that I can watch Infinity War and Endgame today than ever before. So I don't get what your problem is, brah.
And look, and fundamentally, look, and I don't want the conversation to devolve into a, you should like these movies, Francis. No, hey, if you don't like them, you don't like them. It is what it is. But also, there's an incredible sense of a lack of wisdom when, look, the comic book movies right now, right or wrong, whether you like it or not, they are the most dominant force in the box office right now. The studios don't make that. The fans make that.
Yeah.
The fans decide what is going to be the most dominant force in the box office. The fans decide what they want to spend their money to go see. The fans decide what is entertaining them and challenging them and opening up their imaginations. The fans decide that. For a Coppola and a Scorsese, especially when you start upping the verbiage, you start using words like invading, despicable, all this kind of, especially when you're doing that, nobody would fault them to just go, not for me, don't like them, they don't really work. Nobody would fault them for that. But when you look at the fan and you speak out to the fan base and say, what you like sucks. The movies you're supporting, they're despicable. They're unwelcome invaders. It's an unwise thing to do. Again, say for the fifth time. I'm not saying they have to like them, and you can even say, I don't like them. They don't work for me. Well, I didn't have any problem with the first statement, but there's a lack of class. There's a lack of wisdom. There's a very myopic sort of. There's a little bit of navel gazing going on here, I feel like, and it is what it is. And look. We comic book movie fans can accurately and fairly be criticized about, don't talk about our precious comic book movies in a bad way. We can be that way. But I really do feel like this is a situation where, no, this really is a mounted attack on these things, and it's not good for them. It's not good for the fans. It's having us talk about crap that we should be talking about other things. But I just hope somebody gets in their ear and says, guys, you're just making yourselves look stupid, which is beneath you. Please stop. Next time somebody asks you, just say, you know what, the comic, I don't get them. They don't really do it for me. I don't like them so much, they're not for me. And then move on. And we'll go, oh, well, that's too bad. Okay, well, let's just move on with our life. Anyway, that's my thought. What do you guys think about the escalation brought onto this by Francis Ford Coppola at this? Jump on down in the comments section and let us know your thoughts. All right.